Okay, I've been working on cleaning the valve cover gasket. I've got it sprayed down with some engine degreaser after an initial coat with some uh, brake pad cleaner. I cleaned it, or I scrubbed it down pretty good with brake cleaner, and then sprayed some of this engine degreaser on it. I'm going to let that soak for a little while. So in the meantime, I'm going to move on to cleaning the intake. First thing I'm going to do is take off this bracket here, and then pull off the remaining hose connections after carefully documenting how they go back together. And then I'll pull off this electrical connector there, and then I think I just have probably 2 bolts left. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's these 2 up front are the only thing holding the upper manifold onto the lower at this point. I've pulled all the other bolts, so I should be able to open it up and clean out the insides really good. So let me get it apart, and then I'll take a look at the inside and give it a clean. Okay, I've got the intake opened up. As you can see, it's pretty nasty inside. Lots of oily residue. So I got my work cut out for me. I'm going to clean all this up using carbon choke cleaner and brake cleaner again. Get it scrubbed down pretty nice and clean, and then put it back together. So this will just be a slow, tedious process, but I'll show a couple pictures, a couple shots when I'm done. Yeah, this is sort of a, just a necessary evil part of this process. Try to get it cleaned up as best I can. So anyway, I'll get to scrubbing and show you what it looks like when I'm all done. Alright, so I've given the upper and lower manifolds a once over. Used lots of brake cleaner and carbon choke cleaner, a bunch of rags, and an assortment of tools. I had a couple of small, like, pipe brush type things, wire bristles, soft wire bristles, and then I had a soft bristle brush that was pretty handy. Basically, I just coated everything, let it sit for a little while, then use the brushes and rags and just sort of try to get in all the nooks and crannies. The soft bristle brush was great to get inside the runners. I hit it once with this and then wipe it out with a rag, and then spray off the residue with cleaner, and then I drained it into a catch basin. So I've given everything a once over. One of the most significant improvements was just in the EGR tube. If you've watched my video from when I cleaned the EGR and the tube when I had the intake still on the vehicle, I don't know if it showed up in the video or not, but if I remember correctly, when I did that cleaning, the inner diameter of this tube was, even after I cleaned it, was still choked pretty badly with carbon. I thought it was just like a sort of a thick wall pipe, but as you can see here, it's not. The inside diameter is like at least 3/8 probably, and the rest of that was just built up with carbon. So I didn't realize it at the time. I thought I had cleaned it out sufficiently, but now looking at it, I realize how bad it still was clogged up even after I cleaned it. So these little pipe cleaner brushes came in really handy. You can spray cleaner up in the hole and then chase it out with ease. You can do the same thing from this end, except for this port makes a right angle turn right underneath here. And there's actually an Allen plug right here, which I guess the intention is to back this out, and you can chase it out straight this way, as opposed to trying to get something to go down and then around the corner. Unfortunately, I tried to back this out and the head is stripped, so I'm not going to be able to get it out. So I just used lots of cleaner. I sort of plugged one end of the tube with my finger while I filled it up from the other end, and let it sit there for a minute or two and then let it dump out. So I feel like I've gotten it pretty clean at this point. Anyhow, I'll probably break out my pressure washer later today to hit these one more time. They've got, you can still see the gunk in the corners, just the nooks and crannies and the hard to reach places. I mean, it's 100% better than it was, but I'm going to try to get the rest of that off with a pressure washer. It's warming up nicely today, so I'll probably get that out later and wash them off one last time and let them dry before I put them back in the vehicle. So anyway, this was a tedious process. It's messy. You can see all the splatter I got on the wall, so just be prepared. It helps to have a sort of a catch pan underneath you here. So anyway, now that this is done, I should be able to move on to start bolting things back on the vehicle. So stay tuned for that. Alright, I'm getting ready to put the upper and lower manifolds back together. Done a lot of scrubbing on them. Got them pretty clean. I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. There's still a little bit of carbon buildup in there, but I'm not too worried about it. It's 100% better than it was when I took it apart. So anyway, I'm ready to put it back together. Obviously, this is the upper. I'll turn this upside down, set it on top of the lower. Obviously, it gets a gasket in between. I'll get those bolted back together, and then I'll be ready to put the whole assembly back onto the engine. So all these bolts get torqued back down to 18 foot-pounds. That is if you're using the aftermarket gasket. I've got a Felpro set. It's sort of a thicker material. I had read that the OEM gaskets were sort of a plastic material, and if you torqued them down to 18 foot-pounds like the manual says, sometimes they would crack and start leaking. But the aftermarket, especially the Felpro kit I've read, is one of the better ones. It's a thicker material. In fact, I think that's the gasket that was installed in here previously. Anyway, it's a thicker material that will not crack under the higher torque setting. So I'm going to put it back together with 18 foot-pounds on each bolt. So let me get the gasket in place and set the upper on top, and then I'll show where the bolts go and we'll get them torqued down. Okay, you can see I've got the gasket on the lower manifold. It's got a couple of like alignment sleeves here, one in this corner and one in this corner. And as far as I can tell, there's really only one way the gasket can go on. If you rotate it 180 degrees, it doesn't line up. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and flip the upper over, set it in place, and I'll show you where the 4 bolts go that hold the upper onto the lower, and I'll go ahead and torque those down. Okay, so I've got the upper manifold sitting on the lower manifold. The gasket seems to have lined up pretty well. There's 4 bolts that hold the upper to the lower. One here, and then on the front there's this bracket that receives the engine cover and has some clips for the wiring harness. That goes on first, and then there's 2 more bolts that go through it and thread into the manifold. So once again, all these get torqued to 18 foot-pounds. I'm going to go ahead and torque those down, and the upper will be secured to the lower, and then I'll be ready to go ahead and set the whole unit back into the engine and bolt it onto the engine. Of course, there's 4 more long bolts that go there, 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 and there. And that's what holds the entire assembly onto the engine. I'll go over that again once I have it sitting in place. But anyway, I'm going to torque these upper bolts down and take the whole unit out to the car and be ready to put it on the engine. Okay, I've got the bolts sort of snug right now, but on second thought, I think I'm going to wait to torque them down fully until I have the manifold on the engine and I have all the other bolts installed, because these long bolts actually compress the upper to the lower. So I'd like to have those installed so I can sort of torque in sort of a spiral motion to distribute the load evenly. I don't really want to do just the 4 corners right now. So anyway, I've just got these tight enough to keep it together as a unit so that I can get it back on the engine. and then I'm gonna, like I said, put the longer four bolts in and torque it all down. Then I am gonna go ahead and reinstall some of the accessories on here, such as I think this is the map sensor. This just sort of presses, this little rubber grommet presses down into this port like that and gets secured here with this bolt. So I'm going to go ahead and connect that. There's also sort of like a heat sink with a couple of connections on it. I'll probably bolt that back on. I'm going to wait to do the EGR valve until I have this back in the engine, just because it sticks up right here. I don't really want that mounted on there when I try to finagle this thing back in place. So anyway, that's about it. I'll show you a shot of it right before it goes in the engine compartment, and then I'll show you, where to bolt it back together.